Welcome to the Honeypot podcast. I'm Fredrik Heghammar.
And I'm Alexander Wennerberg. How
Good to
are
see
you? Good to see you as well, Fredrik. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good.
Nice.
It's Friday again. Saturday, Monday.
A little Friday jingle.
Yes.
To celebrate. Nice to hear. You've been having some really interesting workshops and speeches lately, right, Fredrik?
Yes, I've been in Lithuania, in beautiful Vilnius. And I've been talking to two events. The first one was to kick off the Swed Lab at Swedbank. It was a great bunch of people that are diving into innovation in the banking environment, or banking world, I would say. And then I went off to a conference it was a mix between leadership and cybersecurity. Also very interesting.
Any takeaways?
And the funny thing is, both banking and cybersecurity, I would say, if I take those two, and leadership, of course, but it boils down to people, in the end. In the banking world, I think the big challenge, or the opportunity, I would say, everything is opportunities, is going back a little bit to the personalization, that you have your bank man or bank woman to talk to, and that knows everything about you, and can, or they frame it like they know everything about you, so you feel important. And I think now with all the wonderful technology out there like AI, we can definitely have a bank man or woman taking care of us digitally. Yeah. I think that's a huge opportunity, I would say. And in the leadership, of course, it's all about people and humans, but also in cybersecurity, I mean, everything that goes wrong is basically made by human.
It's so interesting. I actually heard about something like a couple of years ago, or not a couple of years, I guess it's 10 years ago now, but when it comes to security and technical and IT security, you can have all the tech in the world, but if you're not really educating or getting people to act in the right kind of way with documents and security and permissions in the right way, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I heard such an interesting example of when they've tried these penetration tests of companies 10-12 years ago, when they were running into a front desk at a large company, acting like they were someone who were going to an interview, job interview at the company, and they said to the person working in the front desk reception at the office, I'm a bit late, sorry, but I really need to print my resume. Could you take this USB drive and just print it for me really quickly? I'm really sorry. And she stick the USB driver into the computer, and then they had access to a lot of stuff. So it's all about the human side of it. I
also been working with a company in the past called Jungle Map, which is a wonderful way of learning. They call it nano learning.
Yeah.
And they are really big within cybersecurity. Which is great, but they also have a test before they start education. They send out an email to the whole organization that free tickets for this Robbie Williams show tonight. And even if they're just taking a class in cybersecurity, I mean, there's a lot of people clicking to it. And guilty as charged. I probably have done it myself, but
definitely.
That's how it is. But the human is the thread within the two conferences I've been to. In one way or another.
That's great. It takes us as you said, industries within a lot of with a lot of regulations around them. It takes us a little bit to the theme of today's episode as well. You have an expression that you've been using a while that I really love, where you're saying how are you going to be able to get people to think outside of the box if they don't even have a box, right?
Yeah, it's silly enough to remember, and it's overused to think outside the box term. But I mean, we see very often, you and I, especially within our tool, but also with our previous experience helping companies to innovate and develop, that is usually the framing of the problem or the opportunity or the challenge. It could be either that is too wide or too undefined. The most common way of doing it is to jump straight into solutions to the problem, and that's really scary, because that's usually most of the time goes wrong, I would say. And we have this person that we look up to called Alberto Savoia, and he says, make sure you're building the right it before you build it right, because we're really good in building things the right way, but we're not always good at building the right it. And I would say, make sure you're solving the right it before you solve it right, as well. Going back even one more step. But yeah, the funny thing was, when I talked at Swedbank, it really resonated with them that you have to think outside. You don't get the box to think outside, but in such an industry like banking, everything is so regulated, and working with innovation and development and so on can really hold you back, because there's so many limitations to what you can do. But to me, that's like the golden start, because you have so many boxes to think outside, and I think that's the beauty. You don't have to guess what to solve. You know what to solve, and everything is very regulated. And a lot of people would say, "Oh, we can't do anything." But to me, it's the other way around. You can really test things, and you can really trying to figure out specific things in detail, because they're so framed and so regulated. So that's my point of view. I might be crazy optimistic, but that's how I see it.
I love the crazy optimistics. They're moving the world in the right direction. But it's one thing, because I think that when it comes to having a clear challenge or opportunity to work with when it comes to ideas, I think that comes with two advantages. One of the things that I think that a lot of companies are experiencing is that when they're capturing ideas or solutions or improvements or suggestions from their organization around how they can solve things or improve stuff, a lot of the experience is that they don't really, how should I say, like this, maybe we're solving the wrong problem, or maybe we're going too wide until the end, where they have so many ideas that are not relevant to act on, really. So that's really one way of looking at it, and why you need to define earlier. And we're going to be diving deeper into that in a few minutes as well. But when it comes to the regulated industries, I think that it's so interesting, because there's so much you already know on beforehand that makes the alternative solutions or alternative roads, paths forward, way more clearer.
Yeah, definitely. If you add ingredients like future, or budgets, or just the thought that you can actually, if you come up with a good idea that it's hold back by regulations, if you work with design thinking as a methodology, you can give proof to the people that decide about the regulations that they should do it a different way. And I think that's the important thing. I got a question there at Swedbank. So what if there are clear KPIs and everything, And I said that's the best thing, because then you know what you need to challenge. So if you have an idea, you also need to challenge the KPIs and show KPIs on your idea for the solution or the challenge or the opportunity. That means that you have to know what you need on the table to make decision, of course. But then, even if things seems to be set in stone, if you show them, a better way of doing it, then they can at least, consider it and test it or make a decision upon it. And I think, in the regulation world, you know what to expect in the end, and that's like the best game plan ever, if you ask me.
Definitely. But if we would like let's say boil down to the fact that you always have an advantage if you start from a challenge or an opportunity that you want to solve for before you start finding the ideas and solutions for it. What would you say are like a few common like pitfalls or things to think about when it comes to defining or understanding a challenge or an opportunity?
I think the pitfall is, a very common scenario when I worked, previous to Hives, and also now I'm helping our clients to achieve results, of course. But I worked as a consultant before we built Hives, and when they came to me, they had an idea of a challenge or an opportunity. Let's say that how can we increase members in our club? And the obvious for a lot of people would be like, we would do these invitations, marketing and stuff like that. But then when you collect different perspectives, which is key, of course, you have the bouncer in the club, you have the bartender, you have, the disco girl, you have the Travolta guy, you collect different people, and then you also bring in people from the industry. You might bring in a liquor brand and a soda brand and a chips brand, people from different perspectives and different angles. And then you still want to have more members. That is the overarching challenge you have. But then when you start digging into this and look into defining the challenge to get more members, you will come up with multiple boxes that you have to solve. You probably heard about I know you have, but the listeners, about the double diamond. And that's exactly what it is. It's not a double diamond. It's like a zillion diamonds, if you, because you start with a challenge, you widen it and look into it, and then you kind of, we get 10 things we need to solve. It's not one, it's still one, but we need to solve these 10 things to solve the one. And then, you need to narrow it down, so you can't solve everything at once. Maybe it depends on the people you have in the workshop or whatever. So you have to kind of define each of these 10 boxes or challenges or problems you need to solve, and then you need to work on each of them. And if you're lucky, when you're working on one of the 10, you might solve 3 of them. That's how it is. So you need to be open, and then you need to see everything as a funnel. You're funneling down, and once again, it can't be said enough, you have to make sure that you know what you are presenting when you're done, because otherwise you don't have anything to work against. So you need boxes all the way.
Yeah.
You need to think outside the box, and then you need to put it back into the box when you present it.
But I think the concept of diamonds are so useful in pretty much any steps here, because if you think about the diverge, converge, I don't know if I'm using the right words. Doesn't matter. If you're thinking about the diamonds as a concept where you are like first opening up to get as many insights as possible from the right
observe.
Exactly, observe, and then narrow it down to the conclusions and key insights. That's the concept of a diamond opening up and then narrowing down is so useful, no matter if you're using in the understanding phase or the ideation phase or the testing and prototyping phase and so on. So it's I really love that concept.
Yeah, so that means when you're working in a tool like Hives, because everything we do in our tool, I mean, you probably know it by now, but we everything starts with a collection. That means that you have a problem you need to solve, or you have an idea about something you need insights, you need people to look and test, but everything starts from a collection. So let's say that you start with a collection. How can we increase members in the club? That, as I said, will generate a lot of different new challenges or new opportunities, where each of them needs to be a new collection, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
So, and working with workflows or processes, as we call them, we call them workflows, because you take your existing processes, your existence models, business models and so on, and you kind of mirror it in our tool, and then you can working on it. But also, to be able to make decisions, is very important to have clean data all the time, because clean data allows you to make better decisions. So that means that if you start a collection about, how can we get more members into the club, that is kind of one data set. And then if someone has an idea that we should have extremely welcoming bouncers, female bouncers that are very welcoming, that's a new collection. How can we achieve that? And then if you work that way and you start new collections from other collections and create children of the mother challenge sort of, then you will get a very, very clean data, and that's what we need to make the best decisions.
Yeah, but so it's a lot about making sure that you involve the right perspectives.
Yes,
even when you're talking about the define.
And sometimes the wrong and right.
Of course.
Yeah,
it's the different perspectives into the same.
And the beauty with this is that if you know your target audience, you don't have to have like thousands of people involved. You need to have representation, and I think the word representation is a good way. Make sure that you have perspective represented in your process. And that doesn't mean that they have to be in a workshop working 2 days or working with you for a month. It could be like a quick check-in where they give you data based on scoring or just, give their insights on something. So it can be done with a tool like Hives, for example, but make sure that you have these panels or water holes or whatever you want to call it to get the different perspective. They don't have to be in the process all the time, but you need to make sure that you have check-ins and rather many than few, I would say, but keep them short so people don't have to invest a lot of time into it, because we have to move at speed and we have to go through quantity to find quality.
Definitely. So every episode we are having a new theme that we think could be beneficial to talk about and share some insights and learnings and best practices. But we are also sharing a specific process or a specific workflow that you can use in Hives as well as a tool. And this time we're going to be talking about a define workflow or define process to help you understand the opportunities or challenges before you start capturing ideas and solutions.
Yeah. So we're talking about defining challenges, opportunities, and problems. And I would say that any collection or any workflow you set up in Hives should have a funnel thinking over it. So you start with quantity to work down to quality. I would say that's in general for everything you should do. But then you can have like multiple funnelings, and then you turn your workflow into like a diamond shape, double diamond or triple diamond or zillion diamonds, as we talked about. And we before we built the tool, we of course have used existing and well tested and down to earth methods like the value proposition canvas, for example, and that is a canvas that really helps people to define the challenge and then find solutions for that. And it basically starts with uncovering. I would say uncovering, but experience or uncover. That's the word. Pains and gains in doing something. So you talk about what is the job that we should do, and I can stay with the example of getting members to a club. So the problem we have, or the challenge or the opportunity, is to how might we get people into the club. And what is the existing pains and gains today with doing that? So you can collect, all the good things is that we have a nice club, but we have a long line outside, we have a great bar and so on, a nice staff. That would be the good parts. And it's very easy to forget the good things when you're working with trying to solve things. You focus on the bad things. But then also you uncover and put the bad things on the table. And then you kind of take the pains and the gains, and then you kind of flip them around and turn them into how might we thing. And you try to solve the pains, of course, and then you try to take care of the gains to make them even greater, sort of. And I will think that as I mentioned before, that my recommendation working with this in Heist, for example, is to start with collecting pains and gains separately, and then analyzing them, and then and start new children out of those pains and gains. And those children should be stated, how might we, which is a really good way of thinking as well. How might we get better lighting in the club? How might we get more table? How might we get nicer restrooms and stuff like that? So that's a really good way of framing it. And then you start widening up again and then narrow it down. So you get the funnel after the funnel after the funnel, basically. And I think that's the pains and gains things is something that's fairly easy to collect from people because they have opinions about things. And just make sure that you are really clear that we're looking into this moment now. Not, pains is really good. People are really good in writing down what's wrong. But then when it comes to writing down what's good, I would say 5 out of 10 times when I do this, the people I have in the workshops and so on, they are writing things that they want it to become or what they expect, and not what is
so not focusing on the present. Yeah,
exactly. So that's really what is good now with what we have. And then once again, an example would be we have a really nice staff, we have nice facilities, we have a good brand and so on, So it's really good taking care of that as well. So that I would say is a good start. If you don't have your own methods and processes and stuff like that, look into value proposition canvas and take the goodies out of it and use it as a start to define your problem.
So it's a bit of a two-step process. First asking, framing it around a challenge or a goal, where we're asking people what's good today and what's bad today, capture all of that, and then narrow that down into a framed, let's say, how might we question. And how might we is a statement that you can Google as well, and you'll find a lot of great templates to use there as well. But it's a way of framing a challenge or an opportunity based on insights that you've captured. So it starts with how might we blah 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 blah.
Exactly. And something that I forgot about the value proposition canvas, they talk about jobs to be done, and I think that's also really helping to frame. If you have a challenge, once again, get people into the club, and to frame it as a job that we need to get. We need to get more people into the club, and what's holding us back to do that today, and what's helping us to do that today. So you start with the jobs to be done, and that's also a good way to start defining the challenge or the problem or the opportunity as a jobs to be done, because then it gets more concrete as well, if you know what I mean.
Definitely.
Yes, but we have a client working with this a little bit, right?
But we have, and it's. I think that one of the most interesting.
We have multiple clients working with this way, but for this example.
Exactly, and one of the most interesting ones I've seen lately is it's a company called Sender Group, which is a large European company that are manufacturing industrial ventilation for different industries around Europe and North America. And they have first and foremost, I would say that they have such an inspiring product team that really are working very proactively and very, very actively with really understanding stuff before they're presenting that data to make decisions based on. And what they've been doing in Heist, for example, is that they've been using this methodology to ask what kind of, let's say that they're going to be building or launching a new product, or they're going to be doing a specific change or something else in the market or the company or the organization. Then they're going out to the organization or the right audiences that they have. Let's say that they're asking the salespeople or the marketing people and the product people about a few different, what's the problems, what's the opportunities, what's the good things, what's the bad things. And they're also asking, for example, what would be the possible business value of behind changes and so on, and market value and so on and so on. But one thing that's really interesting here is that when they have gathered all of that data what we've made possible in Hives since a while back ago is that with that data that you capture, you can just, with the click of a button, you can just generate a conclusion and a summary with the help of AI. So you just click a button and that will read through everything that you've written, everything that you've captured and collected from this audience, and it will produce a really nice conclusion, a summary, a report that you can use to make decisions based on. So with that information, that means that you will have information or data from the right people, the right audiences, in context of your organization and your opportunities and challenges and your company, but it will still be possible to produce as a structured conclusion.
Yes, and also these AI reports, as we call them, can be tailored, of course, and you can have multiple of them, so you get what you need to make your decisions. But it's a good way of working. You know, similar we are doing when we are doing physical workshops, but with Post-its. So it's, you know, voting and grouping and funneling down to real defined challenges to come up with good solutions for.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great way of using a tool when you don't have if you don't really have the time to like gather 8 or 10 or 20 people at the same time at the same place and do a workshop or so on. It's a great tool to make sure that you can just capture everything digitally, remote, whenever people have the time, in a very structured way as well.
That's great.
Great.
So I think that's it for today. And
it is.
If you have any topics, any questions that you want us to address, please send it our way to Fredrik@hives.co or Alexander@hives.co, and we will talk about it in this podcast.
Definitely, and feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or wherever you are as well, if you have any questions or thoughts about it. But with that said, thank you for listening to the Honeypot podcast, and see you next time.
Yeah. Have a good one. Cheers.
Bye-bye.